No. Okay, welcome. What is it, December 18th? It's the final Environmental Protection Committee meeting for the year. Welcome. So delighted that you all could join us. I'm Alice Blank. I'm chair of the committee. I'm here by Wendy Chapman, co-chair, and our, what we call now Techie Tammy rather, our chair of the board who helps us out. We're delighted to have a couple of really wonderful presentations ahead. So I'm going to start off with the topic on the agenda of waste reduction and composting. I'm particularly happy because we actually have people who are on our board who are very involved in organizing this agenda. So we're going to start with Hillary Bosch from the Department of Sanitation, who's the outreach coordinator, and she's going to tell us a little bit about what's going on composting currently in the city. And as of October 24th, this will be something that we will all be needing to do. And that's only, what, 9 or 10 months away. So it's actually not too soon to be really something out. I think one thing that I mentioned earlier that's critically important here is to better understand why the mayor has cut this part of the program of the organic local composting, and how is that being dovetailed into the programs that are ahead of us, and what we can do to support these programs that we have. Marissa Dominicus, excuse me, with us, who's the head of Earth Matters, who's an incredibly critical component of composting in Lower Manhattan. And delighted you could come so that there can be an exchange and an understanding of where we go from here. Okay, so I think you have a presentation, so feel free to come up here or stay where you are, wherever you can ask Tammy.
Helping me. Let me open it up. I'll open the slides for you if you'd like.
No, that's the one.
No. Don't worry, I'm good.
We have here like.
ESNY presentation, yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you see?
Oh,
Can everybody online hear okay? Rosa, maybe you can.
Yep, we
speak
can
up.
hear. We can hear you and we can see you. Oh, yep, and the slide is up.
Thank you.
Great. So thank you, Alice, for introducing me. I'm Hillary, everyone. I work with the Department of Sanitation, the Bureau of Public Affairs. I have a brief PowerPoint tonight to talk more broadly about the curbside composting program, touch on what to compost, where to compost, preaching to the choir here. I'm going to lightly touch on the smart bins, and then the second half of the presentation is more of how to take care of your bin, what kind of outreach we'll be doing come October, or rather sooner, more in July and August. Sort of care and keeping of compost inside the building. So that's maybe not as pressing right now, but the first part is major service updates. So we'll go over that first, and then we'll talk about the community composting aspect of it. So the biggest service update is that curbside composting is going citywide. This is amazing. This is the first time this program is going citywide. If people have been in the city for a while, you know, pre-COVID, it was in 44 community districts, planned to go citywide, budget cuts done, COVID happened, et cetera. So right now it's available to every single residential building in Brooklyn and Queens. Every single residential building that receives currently recycling and trash collection can receive curbside composting collection. Except there are some other major updates. We're expanding this service similarly to the Bronx, Staten Island, and Manhattan in October. If you're plugged into this outreach or this rollout, you may have seen that the Bronx and Staten Island were scheduled to go online in March. But part of the PEG, part of the budget cuts means that rollout will be delayed until October with Manhattan, which is a bummer, but means it will still be happening. So delayed, but it's still happening in October. Good. So just to touch on some of the bigger updates. Number one, all residential buildings can participate in the program that we rolled out immediately after COVID. We were asking residential buildings to sign up, which helped make the routes more efficient, but created an unnecessary burden on property owners and residents, myself included. And so we're saying, let's make it as easy as recycling. Just set it out with your recycling. We'll pick it up. We'll go to everybody. Number two, collection the same day as recycling. This was a bigger issue in Brooklyn, where a lot of folks who currently had it in that sign-up program, their collection day changed. So when it comes to Manhattan, it will be the same day as recycling. And the last one is mandatory separation of composting. If you'd like to go to the next slide. This is kind of a mishmash of both a sanitation rule and a city council law. So the first part of it is that leaf and yard waste composting are mandatory as it rolls out in the borough. So this was true for Queens and it was true for Brooklyn. The second you get service for Brooklyn, it was October 2nd of this year, composting leaf and yard waste became mandatory that day. There was a 3-month warning period for Queens. For Brooklyn, we're still in that 3-month warning period. So come January 2nd, we'll start issuing fines for any yard waste commingled in the trash. And then the next slide, this came through the city council. Food waste composting is now mandatory. This is a little confusing because the first part, goes into effect, 3-month warning period. For this, it technically does go into effect when we roll out service to the borough. So this is currently in effect for Brooklyn. This is currently in effect in Queens. But the city council wrote into their bill that there's a warning/education period for folks, which is understandable. This is a huge learning curve through the spring of 2025, and that applies to every borough. It does mean that the Bronx, Staten Island, and Manhattan will have a smaller window, but we're starting education around this now because we know it will be a faster learning curve, but still about a year to issue warnings rather than fines because we don't want to lead with the stick. You go to the next slide. And all of this to say, lots of composters in the room. Composting has incredible benefits, both for contributing or reducing our, contributions to climate change through methane gas, through CO2 emissions, but also locally affecting our blocks, keeping our streets clean, containerizing our waste, we know is one of the most important ways we can keep sidewalks free of debris. I talked about this last time I was at the community board meeting, that there is a mandatory containerization in effect for food-related businesses. And this alone has created a huge impact for the amount of debris, the amount of bags ripped open, the amount of rat activity outside of restaurants. So if we've already seen that with food-related businesses, I can only imagine the benefits we'll see for rodent mitigation for residential buildings. Right, go to the next one. All right, what to compost? This is pretty straightforward, but it might be a little different depending on if you've been composting with a community garden, if you've been composting it in your own backyard. Because we're in a larger facility, and I'll discuss that in a moment, we can take it all. Some smaller facilities are not able to accept heavier items like meat or bones or dairy, but we can take all of that. Anything from your yard, anything from your kitchen, cooked, uncooked, gone bad in the back of the fridge, any of that. We'll take it all, including food soiled paper. So if you have paper that's pretty clean, obviously recycle it. But if you have a pizza box that you think is a little too greasy to become another pizza box, you can go ahead and put that in the compost. The only sort of organic material that we don't want in there is any kind of pet waste or human waste. So keep it clean. All right, you can go to the next one.
I'm sorry, what did you say you don't want?
Any kind of pet waste, like kitty litter,
Right.
dog discard, or human waste, like hygiene products,
Of course.
diapers, yeah, just
Thank
that
you.
kind of stuff, yeah. I always mention it because you brought up a good point that Battery Park City is currently doing a dog poop composting program, so it's, people do it, just not us. Great, yeah, if you go to the next one. So I think this is one of the biggest things that I've seen floating around, especially in light of the budget cuts, is where does it go? If you compost in a brown bin or an orange bin in Manhattan, Brooklyn, most of Queens, or the Bronx, it will go to this facility here. This is the Newtown Creek Wastewater Treatment Plant in Greenpoint. They do tours. It's run by the DEP. It's a very cool facility. And those right there are what we call digester eggs. A lot of wastewater treatment plants already have anaerobic digestion in place as part of their waste treatment process, as part of their biosolids treatment process. And years ago, we formed an alliance with them to contribute our food waste as part of their process and capture what we call biogas, which is produced and something anaerobically digested. This is an interesting process because when food scraps go to landfills, as most of us know, they are broken down anaerobically in a landfill, and that methane goes into the atmosphere, contributing to climate change. I think that word methane can be a little scary because here in this facility, we do a very similar process. It's anaerobically digested and converted into biogas, which is primarily methane. But we do not send it directly into the atmosphere. We're not going through all this effort just to do the same thing as landfilling it. It's purified, and as of July of this past year, it's connected to the grid. And so we're using the biogas from this facility, from food scraps we collect, as a substitute for natural gas. So this both keeps organic waste out of the landfills, and creates a resource out of it, and also reduces dependence on fossil fuels, which is really cool. This facility is really interesting. We have 14 wastewater treatment plants around the city, so I think there's a lot of interest in seeing this expand. I know one of the concerns that people have brought up is that this isn't compost, which is very clear. This is not compost, and we've labeled this as a composting program. But
Maybe the best New York restaurant.
sorry, I was like, but you know, our goal is to divert this waste from landfills and to create a beneficial use out of it. Those are our main goals. This is not to say that we don't compost anything. The Staten Island compost facility is on top of the old Marshfield landfill. We process all of Staten Island's waste there.
That one just keeps ringing off.
No, sorry, you're good. So at the Staten Island compost facility, which also occasionally does tours, very cool. They process all of Staten Island's organics. They process some of our school organics, and that is the material that we give away at our compost distributions throughout the city. So if you want to go then.
Hillary, can I just ask what happens to the digestate?
Sure. So DEP manages the end product. It sounds like you're already
Could you
aware.
explain?
Excuse me, I'm going to ask for the questions to be held until the end of the presentations. Thank you. Go ahead.
I think I'll just go for 2 more slides. Let's cover this one, and then that should generally be the gist of it. The rest we can talk about at a later date. But these are the smart bins. There are 400 of them across the city. With the questions about food scrap drop-off sites, you know, having their funding cut, these will not be going away because these are fully managed by the department. They're on our school collection route, so we pick these up 5 days a week typically, sometimes 6 days a week whenever we pick up from schools, and they're accessible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week through the NYC Compost app, which you can download. It's a free app. You don't need internet. You just need Wi-Fi, and then when you're close to a bin, it will unlock the bin. There are a ton of these all over Manhattan. I'm sure you've seen them all over the place. One of the pilots was in the financial district, which is great for our office. We have a bin in our fridge. But yeah, so those are some of the bigger updates that maybe folks are interested in. This is sort of how to set out your yard waste. The next slide is how to set out your food waste. Basically, in summary, any kind of food waste needs to go in a bin when you put it out. It can be one of our bins, can be one of your bins. Any kind of yard waste can be in a bin, or it could be in a bag. I think that's okay. Just the stuff that the critters want, we really want to be in a bin. This part, common misconceptions. Again, these are just some kind of general composting misconceptions. Number one, that it attracts rats. Your trash is currently attracting rats, so composting is a great way to mitigate against rodent activity by containerizing it, like I said. We work very closely with the Department of Health to promote this program as part of their Rat Academy training. Number two, composting is complicated. Past iterations of our program have been, namely, this is mentioned later on, that you can't put plastic bags in the bin, and the answer is now you can. We got so much feedback that this was really confusing, and you know, asking people to buy biodegradable bags was kind of a burden. And so now we have a facility that can sort out these contaminants. Of course, we don't want a ton of contaminants, which is why those orange bins, those smart bins that I mentioned, do have a lock. That's one of the biggest critiques we get of those bins, like why are they locked at all? And I don't know if you've ever seen a recycling bin in a public park, but they do not have recycling in them. And so this lock, while open to the public, open to anyone with the app, is just a slight barrier to say, we really want to make sure you're putting compost in here and not whatever you have in your hand. So you can put plastic bags in our bins, in the smart bins, or in your own bin. We can sort those out. If you want to bag your compost every single day and put it in there, you can do that. If you want to get one big plastic bag to line it and dump it all in there, you can do that as well. And the last one, there's a perception that most compost just gets thrown out. This is absolutely not true. We would not go through all this trouble if it was just getting thrown out. Something that I've been seeing a lot of in Queens and also in Midtown Manhattan are people seeing their compost and their trash going in the same truck. And that is very possible. We use split body trucks for a lot of our compost and trash routes. These are the same trucks that we use for recycling. So typically on one side we metal, glass, plastic, the other side paper. But for many of our composting routes, one half is trash, one half is compost. They go to two separate locations. So yeah, if you see that happening, if you see your sanitation worker putting compost in a trash truck or in the trash side, then that's a different issue, but it really should be separate. I think we can just go ahead and.
You don't have to race the wall.
Oh,
Don't feel.
all right, I know there's a lot of people who want to talk. Tips for storing waste or food waste in your home. Definitely recommend containerizing it before you put it in another container outside. You can do this by putting it in a Tupperware. I use a Tupperware just to keep it away from my kitties. You can also use a plastic bag, put it in your freezer. You can use one of these kitchen containers that we give away for free. If you're new to composting and you're nervous about the odors, this is what I did. I put it in my freezer and it stops all those odors. And you put it directly from your freezer into your main bin or directly from your freezer into your smart bin. Go to the next slide. Taking care of your bin. This is just kind of general maintenance stuff. It is a waste bin, so it's not going to smell amazing. But we strongly recommend that you clean your bin as needed. You know, hose it out every now and then if you're responsible for it or whoever is responsible for it in your building, you know, take care of it. Put some newspaper on the bottom to absorb any excess liquids. Absolutely write your name on the bin. And I cannot stress this enough for when this starts in your apartment buildings or in your home. Make sure the bin is closed at all times. We have a lot of large buildings in Manhattan where residents made their own signs and covered the bin in them saying, close after use, because all those great benefits locally are not available if, you know, the bin is open and the smells, the critters, et cetera, et cetera. So keeping that bin closed is really important. For large apartment buildings, we have a lot of resources we can provide. If you go to the next slide, I think it's there. Oh, maybe it's the one after that. But we have basically a lot of things that you can order from our website directly. Decals, posters, flyers for you to post. You can also have someone like me or someone from our outreach team come to your building to do a walkthrough with your super. I can't say how many times I had a resident reach out and say, I don't think I have any room. Can you come check it out? And then we get there and it's like, okay, well, you can probably squeeze it here, not in the trash room, but put it outside and, you know, find space for it. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Sanitation materials. That's the page to order all that stuff for free. Really, really helpful. They also have coloring books, which are pretty cool. And if you could go one slide up actually for the back up. This is just the setting out waste one. Yeah. This is probably old news at this point, but as you probably know, in April of last year, we changed the set out times for waste, where we said for residents, anything in a bin can be set out no earlier than 6 p.m. and then anything in a bag can be set out no earlier than 8 p.m. Something to note in reference to what I said about the split-bodied trucks being compost on one side and trash on the other, this means that we're not always going to be able to pick up bulk trash items on your recycling day because the truck is smaller. So most places have at least 2 or 3 trash collection days. So if you have any bulk items, just set them out on your trash collection day that is not also your recycling and compost collection day. And if you could, I guess, switch to yeah.
And outreach and education.
Yep. Oh, I guess the one right above that one. Yeah. So this is an example of stuff that the next couple slides are examples of stuff that we did in Brooklyn and Queens that we'll probably do for the next three boroughs that we add on. Number one, we canvassed all 1 to 9 unit buildings. This was, I think, 300,000 in Brooklyn and a couple 100,000 in Queens. The reason we did 1 to 9 is because if you canvass a large apartment building, odds are when you buzz, the person you're going to get is not the person who takes out the trash. These smaller buildings typically, you know, residents either do it or the super lives on site. So for larger buildings, we're calling the properties, we're emailing recycling coordinators from the HPD list that we have from recycling and compost coordinators around the city, organizing tabling info sessions. We're doing some online info sessions every week. We can also do them directly to co-op boards, to managing agencies, et cetera. You can go to the next slide. I think this one is the most fun, but something that we've done in Queens and Brooklyn is give away 40-pound bags of compost for free in every neighborhood. Anyone who signs up can get 2 40-pound bags of freshly made Staten Island compost at our facility there. Something that we did in Brooklyn that we didn't do in Queens, but we'll probably do in the next boroughs that we roll out to, are in addition to being able to request a brown bin once service comes, we also had these brown bin giveaway events for people who, didn't get the mailer that said, hey, sign up for a brown bin, we'll deliver one to you for free. Or if folks are just more comfortable picking it up themselves, they can do that if they need an extra. And we also give away all kinds of other stuff like leaf bags, those little kitchen containers that I mentioned, 1-pound bags of compost. Those are a lot more popular in Manhattan, you might imagine.
Thank you so much.
That's it. And then just we're sending
Oh, sorry.
things in the mail, but the last one is questions. Sorry. Thanks.
That was terrific, very helpful, and thanks very much. It's a great launch, which will be made to go into this. I'm wondering if Pushpa, do you think this would make sense for you to that first and then to open it up to question and answer? Because
Sure.
so Pushpa Pandey is a member of our community board and our environmental protection committee. And she is the co-founder of something called Think Zero, I'm not sure you've heard of, which is she's a waste management expert. And she very cordially agreed to come and speak. And I think it would be helpful to hear from her, and then we can launch into questions if that's okay. So,
Sure. I sent my deck over.
yes, you
Yeah.
did, and it's
Oh,
here.
you want every, oh, gotcha.
Oh. But thank you.
You don't want to do questions on one?
No, I'm gonna do both, because I think there'll be some crossover and rather than, I think it'd be helpful to hear from everybody on waste management generally in New York City and then in Lower Manhattan, and then we can take it away. I may be wrong, but we'll bear with it.
And Hillary covered a little bit of what I thought you might cover, the do's and don'ts, so I didn't do any of that, so. And Hillary and I are friends, and we're not talking at crossroads yet, so. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. I thought I would talk a bit about the state of, not too deep, I can give anyone websites, links, documents, posts, but a quick tutorial on waste and what I think people find a little bit interesting. We go to page 2. I don't think people all often know, but waste is managed 2 different ways in New York City. There's residential waste and there's commercial waste. Residential waste is picked up and managed by the Department of Sanitation. So that's what Hillary was talking about. Commercial waste is what's picked up by all the private haulers. And that is what I think is really interesting is that they pretty much generate the same amount of waste every day, over 11,000 tons. One is picked up by DSNY and one is picked up by Royal, Action, Philco, RTS, Waste Management, Mr. T, all of them that you see running around the city late at night. So let me tell you a little bit about residential first, 11,000 tons picked up every day. These materials are sent to different states and facilities. Hillary did talk about where compost goes, so I won't get into that. But recycling goes to Sims. We have a multi-year contract with Sims. They're down in Brooklyn. Google their YouTube videos so you can see how they sort their materials. And that goes to a MRF, which is a material recovery facility. So they do a great job. New York City wants people to compost as much as possible. So they'll kind of tell you to throw everything that you think is recyclable into the bin. I kind of think that's a bad thing to do, but I understand they want to get as much material as possible, and they have a high-tech system so that they can sort the material. Organics goes to several different locations. Hillary talked about the fact that most of it goes to the digesters, the eggs, which turns into biogas. A big one is Newtown Creek. Some does go to traditional composters, which we'll talk about in a second. And then trash is either incinerated or landfill. Incinerated, it goes to Covanta, can go out in Newark, some other places, or it gets put on a barge by all of the different transfer stations. There's one on 91st Street, if you've seen it. There's one in Brooklyn. And they'll put on a barge and can go up to Seneca Falls in New York. It can go down to Charleston, Virginia, it goes to Ohio. We ship it out. We do not have a landfill. God bless you. Here in the city. God bless you.
Thank you, sir.
Once we close Fresh Kills in Staten Island. We spend, New York City's budget is about $430 million to manage this residential waste. So if we had less of it, you could theoretically free up that money to go to something else. On the commercial side, also 11,000. They have their own landfill and recycling facilities, or they partner with folks. So if you're in a commercial building, have a business, and you want to know where the waste goes, call up your hauler and they'll tell you. There's too many permutations for me to go through that. Commercial hauling will be subjected to the commercial waste zones, which are supposedly starting next year, but that has been a long, long process. The commercial waste zones is a project that the city is undertaking to prevent trucks from crisscrossing the city all night long, i.e. picking up in the Bronx and going down to Brooklyn and then coming back into Midtown Manhattan and then going down to downtown and then going all the way back up to the Upper East Side. So they're carving up the city and handing out contracts. A lot of articles on that. If you're interested in that, if you Google it, it'll come up. And then the only other thing I'll tell you is that New York City did establish a zero waste goal in 2016, which means they're looking to divert 90% of what they have historically sent to landfill and incineration, and diverting it, meaning composting it, recycling it, reusing it, repairing it, etc. But they have not really tracked their progress on that or done much. So it's kind of the lofty goal that New York City, as well as many other cities, have. And I think folks like us are continuously trying to push DSNY to come back to those goals. But just, a little bit of the state. The next page talks about the waste management hierarchy, so you know what environmentalists or waste management folks think about. This is from the EPA. And when we think about materials, we think about the first thing we want people to do is reduce. So stop creating trash that you have to put into any bin, even recycling or composting, which is why you're seeing a lot of push for reuse systems in place. After reuse and repair and reduce, et cetera, we focus on recycling and composting, which we'll talk about. And recycling and composting are not the first solution. They're very problematic. There are issues with plastic recycling. It's not really recyclable. Composting can be problematic as well, including compostables, because not all sites can accept compostables. So that's the next level. Then energy recovery, which is what a lot of the compost is going to from New York City, which is waste to energy, biogas, and then landfilling. So that's the hierarchy that most folks who are interested in waste reduction and diversion follow. People say, well, we're landfilling it. What is the problem with landfills? Landfills create methane, and methane is quite toxic. You will see that methane is 28 times more effective than CO2 at trapping heat in the atmosphere. And when you put stuff into a landfill, you're creating methane. And landfills are the third largest source of human-related methane emissions in the United States. And I think I bolded at the bottom here. The fact is that we've generated a fair amount in 2021 that was equivalent to 23.1 million gasoline-powered passenger vehicles driving for 1 year. So that's another reason I think environmentalists think about, let's not landfill, like reuse, repair, et cetera, because when you put things into landfill, we never see it again, but we are feeling the effects of it. On the next slide, I talk a bit about DSNY does a waste characterization study. They do it for residential and commercial. The latest residential was 2017. Hillary might know better. I thought they had funding to do it earlier this year. They didn't do it. It's coming out, right? so we'll see. I think this is really important to see, well, what is it that we throw away and why composting is something that people are really into. About 35% of what is thrown away in New York City residential, and it is comparable on the commercial side, is food scraps and edible food, actually. If you want to come dumpster diving with me sometimes downtown, happy to do it, and we can eat off the streets of New York City. It's possible.
Yeah.
So you'll see here, 34% of what we throw away can be composted or donated to people. 34% is recyclables, 23% is other, textiles, a lot of food. So there's a lot of things we throw away that can either be composted, can be recycled, it can be donated, repaired, or reused. And when the next study comes out, you'll see what it is. So that's why we care about composting. It's 35% of the waste stream. Hillary talked about it. They offer curbside and drop off in the smart bin. And we're hoping that curbside will come out across all 5 boroughs. I just want to point out, see that bin here? You've probably seen it pop up all over the city. DSNY will say, and we'll get to the community composting. At least these curbside bins are available, even if we're not doing curbside composting. Sorry, the street bins that you see right here on this picture.
Yeah.
You need to have the app. When you get close to the bin and you open up your app, it'll unlock the bin and you can dump in your compost.
Next.
The waste that goes into that bin goes to the digesters. So it's not, and I just want to talk about that because why we think community composting is so important is that it's processed differently. So the next one is community composting. Community composting, you guys, is so, so important. It is so integral to the community building, community awareness, education around what is like important for the environment is what I say. I first got turned into composting because I went to my green market and I saw how it could be done. I've gone to Governor's Island. I have worked on the community composting projects. What is great about community composting is that it's local, it's flexible, it's scalable, it can go up and down. It is a great way to spread awareness and education for what is composting. When you go by your green market, you see all the food scraps. You can ask people, what is it for? What do we do with it? And most important is most community composters are turning it into compost. Compost, the stuff that you just talked about, Hillary, that you're giving it away to people. And that is regenerative agriculture, if you guys are into it. It's about healthy soils. It's about like putting back into the earth things that will then help us grow. Not, no offense to digesters, we have a lot of food, but that's just going into the air and it's methane. Also, so there is about a $3 to $5 million budget cut. It is at risk of about 200 jobs in New York City. There was emergency funding. I don't have the numbers off, but some private donors have come in to save some, but not all of these 200 jobs. But that is only a stopgap measure. Community, if we're serious about waste management, if we're serious about healthy soils, we're serious about green jobs, and we're serious about community building and gathering, then I think community composting and those jobs are really important. And then before I get off of composting, if I want to talk about it, my plug is there are a lot of New York City commercial recycling rules as well. So we talked about residential. DSNY has strengthened their rules in 2016 for recycling, i.e. all New York City commercial buildings must recycle. That means they must have bins and signages in their spaces. If you are a food, like a Starbucks, a Pret, anything with more than 10 locations, or if you have a cafeteria, if you're a big law firm with a cafeteria and you have 8,000 square feet of space, you must compost. And there are many buildings that are not doing it. So if you work in one of those buildings and you notice that your building does not compost and they should be composting, if they should be recycling, report them to DSNY, is what I say. Next page, right? And I went a little bit closer on next page, right? These are very close on the rules. There are many buildings who do Class A buildings, but if you're in a Class B or Class C building, they would say it's too expensive for them to provide you with recycling services. So report them to DSNY and they should get a fine and maybe then they'll recycle. And on slide 10, the next one, I'm trying to go quick, is also there's waste reduction rules per what we talked about. They're starting to do by DSNY. So we have Skip the Stuff, which took 2 years to pass. A community compost is so important, in the council. That means when you do takeout, they're not supposed to give you all the spoons, napkins, cutlery, etc., unless you ask for it. There's obviously a foam ban, there's a carryout bag, and if you are getting a drink somewhere, they're not supposed to give you plastic straws, sticks, and stirs unless you ask for it. They'll give you cardboard stuff that probably falls apart, but that's it. So if you want more information, I just wanted to do a few plugs. Manhattan Solid Waste Advisory Board website and the Sanitation Foundation and the DSN websites have tremendous amount of information for you. They have lists of where you can donate items or what to do with different materials. You can access education and video and materials. For example, not to plug my own work, but I'm on the MSWAB. We created these guides for how you implement recycling and organics in your apartment buildings. I'm also on the Sanitation Foundation board, and we have a Throw Away Your Waste game, which is great to use in schools with nonprofits that tells people how to manage their waste. These sites have information on how to support the city in becoming a low waste city. You can join the MSWAB meetings. They're open to the public. You can join the Save Our Compost Coalition, which Think Zero is a founding member of, which advocates for composting across the city. We have a protest tomorrow at Gracie Mansion. If you're interested in going, email me. I'll let you know about it.
I tweeted it out.
So you did great. And then the next page is just some what to do with your stuff. You should join your local Buy Nothing group on Facebook, give away stuff, and receive stuff for free. You can post items on Instagram under various hashtags like Curb Alert New York City. When I walk down the street and we find stuff on the street, my kids start yelling, Curb Alert, and we take pictures and we post them when people get them. I also, and then you can check out the MSWAP website for a comprehensive guide on how to donate your stuff. There are lots of ways to be low waste, and some of these sites will give it to you. Okay, I hope that was helpful.
Extremely, Ishma. Thank you so much. Excellent. So thank you, Hillary and Ishma. That was really a great sort of beginning of review of composting and waste management. So now I can open it up for questions. If anyone has any questions? Yeah.
I have a question about, I've read that there are some companies that claim that they have a single stream process where instead of pickup, you have single pickup, and they do the separation at their facilities. Does that process work? Are you familiar with it at all?
I am familiar with it. It's not really possible. It's quite expensive. I'll give you a couple of examples. If you put your coffee cup or your Pepsi in with paper and all of the, or you have salad or your greasy ketchup and you put it in with the paper and the glass and it gets all dirty, and then like you can't really recycle the paper. The plastic gets too dirty. You really do. Single stream is to get people to recycle, but it is problematic from having clean, good, separated material. You need to sell, for recycling to work, you need to be able to sell the material.
And single stream
Doesn't,
makes that.
yeah, I mean, like really contaminates paper and cardboard, definitely contaminates paper and cardboard. When you have glass, it breaks up and then it goes into the paper, it goes into the stuff, and then that also.
We're going to take questions from the committee and then we'll be happy to open up to the public. Wendy.
So I have another question, but you made me think about, I'd love to know more about the aftermarket, and that raised a lot of questions. But my actual question is so basically any restaurant or food establishment or grocery store, those are all private parting services.
Yes.
And so is there any consolidated, does one take all of downtown, or are there literally, they just we immediately know this is not being done efficiently, and immediately we know that.
That's why they have the commercial waste zones are coming into play next year.
Exactly what you described.
And it just, so, it's one of the things that I've seen that, tons of food waste just goes into brown bags or, the regular garbage over and over again.
Mhm.
You see it, that people scrape the plate into that. And then, you just think that's where the huge amounts of, and that's not part of anything that you described to us to it today, right?
So, right, so for business organics, it's dependent on either the size of the facility or the capacity of the facility, and it's for back of house organics. There are some facilities that opt to do front of house organics collection, like I believe City Field does front of house organics collection, but there's no rules in the books about it, like at a restaurant, like post-consumer.
And they don't go to the DSNY facility, they do whatever it is that they do with it.
Well, that would
Well, it's
explain
private
too,
hauler, right? It's a
Right.
private hauler, whatever the private hauler.
because it seems like they don't really recycle a lot of places very much, like, I've just seen it in this setting. And I've been so confused because, on the residential side, we're so,
Totally.
don't you dare put the thing in the wrong
Yeah.
place, but it just seems like that could be, is that an untouchable? Is that what we're talking about? This is just untouchable in terms of political?
They have rules. They're supposed to recycle. That's why I was saying, if you see it, report it. You're supposed to recycle. You're supposed to do back of house
On
compost.
a commercial?
Yeah,
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, DSNY doesn't pick up from commercial establishments. Like DSNY for context picks up from residential buildings, schools, and then like nonprofits.
And
or-
But we could report it but then.
We do enforce business laws. We
I
don't
see.
pick up, but we enforce business
Okay,
laws.
thank you very much. And then I'd love to know more on another thing with what you said about the post, where all of it gets sold to. That's a market.
I'm just gonna, is that a question? Okay, I just wanted to be conscious of time. We do have a whole other series of
Yeah.
presentations, so. I
Thank
wanted to
you.
give it one question per person, but what's your question?
The second one's only just because I had my original question, but then it was selling the back end makes it possible and probable if it's clean and, do you sell it? I mean, how does that?
So, like Ushma said, it's processed through Sims, which is a contractor facility in Sunset Park. They also do tours, which are amazing. I strongly recommend a tour. You get to
And
see.
their YouTube videos are also
Yeah,
fantastic.
you'll-
You don't have to, I like their tours, but YouTube is good enough.
Yeah,
If you send us a link, we'll share.
sure, yeah.
Do they take the digestate or whatever, or is that somebody else?
That's
Sorry.
someone else.
So
That's
the-
Newtown.
The facility in Brooklyn is what Ushma called a MRF, or a materials recovery facility. And at that facility, we dump metal, glass, plastic. We dump paper at a paper mill on Staten Island. And then Sims actually owns a glass recycling plant in New Jersey. So they sort the metal, glass, and plastic at the facility in Brooklyn. They sort out the glass, they sort out the metal, they sort out the plastic, et cetera. And you'll learn all this in the YouTube videos or in the tour. But one of the reasons that New York City in particular is profitable with our recycling waste is that there's scale and it's clean. Like Ushma said about the single stream, if it's commingled, it's much less valuable or much more expensive to sort. And so I get that question a lot where people are like, I don't think recycling is actually being recycled. And I can't speak for every municipality because unfortunately it's city by city. So even if you are a perfect recycler in New York City, the second you go across the river to New Jersey, it's going to be completely different, which is very challenging because you're like, I could recycle bottle caps in New York, but I can't recycle bottle caps there. And it's just because different facilities have different capacities to sort. The facility in Brooklyn has the ability to sort out plastic straws. They don't always get recycled, but they can sort that out. They also have a deal with Nespresso to sort out Nespresso pods. My recycling facility back home where I grew up doesn't even accept glass. So it's totally dependent on what they can sell, what there's a market for. And what you say about turning to profit, the Sims facility sells the recyclables that we give to them, and that's generally how they run their facility. If they don't turn a profit, DSNY will supplement, but if they do turn a profit, they share a portion of it with DSNY. So it's a pretty good relationship.
Thank you. Rich, did you?
I have a few questions, but
Right, well-
one at a time, I guess. Going back to the Think Zero and the goal that was set in 2016, how would that relate to the half of it that's commercial if that seems to go anywhere based upon what the contractors do?
Well,
would
DSNY
that
has
help?
the rules, right, which are the commercial recycling rules, the commercial organics rules, the commercial textile, there are all those rules that I kind of went through very quickly at the end, which is they enforce those rules. And then every building and every company should be doing that work in their own space with bins, signage, education.
But
And a
enforcement
pickup.
took a peg as well.
Pardon?
Enforcement also took a peg. Yeah,
Took a
sorry.
peg?
Enforcement also took a
Cut.
cut.
Oh, a hut. Cut. Yes, but there are fines, which is why I say report them. So over time, maybe they'll, and then they're steadily increasing. I mean, they'll fine you today, it'll be $50. And if they fine you 10 more times, the 10th time will be like $5,000.
But you're right, there's a lot of, a major lack of transparency in that industry, 100%, yeah.
And I guess sort of goes to another question, which is enforcement, because it doesn't, how would you categorize the effectiveness of enforcement at this point in time? It's
Sure.
just an everyday observer,
Yeah.
it doesn't look very effective.
So, as you're probably aware, recycling has been a mandated law, so
Even the trash,
Even
cycling
trash,
and
yeah.
trash.
these laws have been on the books for ages. Enforcement is more successful for some people than others. I mean, the fines do go up, but incrementally, but only to the third. So if, it's like it's 50, 100, and then 300, depending on the size of the building. Then every fine after that. So for example, an issue that we're running into with the set out times, where we're saying, hey, you can't set out your bags earlier than 8 p.m. Some buildings are saying, hey, it's cheaper to just take the hit from the fine
Right.
and hire a super, which is bad and not good. So that's definitely something we are struggling with.
Who set the fines? City council or DSNY?
I'm not sure, actually. I'm not sure.
I think that was at the DSNY level, that wasn't the city.
But it's, I'm mainly concerned with the composting laws. So for example, the leaf and yard waste mandate is going into effect in Brooklyn in a month. And then we'll start giving out fines for those. I mean, I hope that they'll be impactful. I hope that they'll motivate people to avoid them. I'm not sure. We'll see. But I think a lot more has to do with education and awareness. And I don't think fines are a particularly effective education tool. I think they're a motivator, but I think the work that, for example, the compost project does, or the community gardens does, or like Grow does, or green markets, that education is much more valuable.
People have to buy into the value of it.
The whys, yeah, the fine isn't really helpful.
Other questions? Well, so go ahead. And there's also online, right? Or
I
not?
moved her up. She wants to speak after Marissa.
Okay, so
So-
Marissa, and you gentlemen in the back, did you?
No, I'm Charlie Byrer. I'm the other co-founder of Earth Matter New York.
Okay, fine. So Marissa's speaking for you guys. Terrific.
I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to make more of a point of how the community composting had also funded the education outreach through big reuse. And
Mhm.
so I would like to know, Hillary, how that's going to be impacted when you have to come to the downtown area in July and August. Who are your core
Right.
that's going to be assisting you? I know that you're going to try your hardest, but how many people are actually going to be on the ground after these cuts?
That's a good question. The bigger youth outreach team are my friends and coworkers.
How many people were on that team that are no longer?
I think about 12 at their max. I mean, but for context, we contract with Big Reuse separately from the Compost Project to do outreach around curbside composting. Their team is extremely effective. They attended hundreds of events last year. They knocked on thousands of doors. They were extremely valuable in the process of doing outreach for curbside composting in Brooklyn and Queens, and everything we've done in all the boroughs citywide.
One would get time.
Yeah.
How many people are left?
That's a good question. We have our outreach team at sanitation. Something that we did for the Brooklyn canvassing program is we mobilized every available outreach unit. So we had about 70 civilian staff, about 60 uniform staff, and then Big Reuse provided 12. And then we also used master composters to help canvass. So I imagine we'll have similar numbers, about 130, 150. We can always get more uniform staff. Yeah, that's what I mentioned. But they don't have the expertise that Big Reuse has.
Thank you.
While we have you here, if we can just get clarity on where Earth Matters is, where all the local programs are in terms of funding. In other words, there was Grow New York City that seems to have gotten some sort of windfall to support. No,
No, Grow New York City was the, one who got half of the budget, the 1.5 million out of the 3 million that was cut. So everyone else didn't get anything. So the remaining, sister organizations, 7 of us, do not have any of the funding that was slated to be cut on January 1st.
and is it still being cut on January 1st?
That's correct. The city council will be voting on the mayor's budget cuts, but because it's a mayoral executive order, it's unlikely that the mayor will be able to, will accept that the city council will reject the cuts. And so the cuts will go into effect because it's the mayor's purview to make these cuts.
And there is no possibility in your minds and the local people that you work with that even a postponement, I know that Governor's Island Trust believes that's something that should happen, that there should at least be postponement until, I don't know, 6 or 8 months where people find other jobs, that they can begin to regroup. The speed of this is egregious beyond reason.
Yes, it's not the will of the city council, but it's not the purview of the city council. It's the purview of the mayor and Commissioner Tisch, who has suggested that this is where the budget cuts will be coming from. So it will be very much harder to get started again after the people are laid off, which are over 60 people that are still remaining, that are being let go as of December 31st.
Is there any value in having the community boards support this as a resolution to try to support that you not lose this funding? I mean,
Absolutely, anything and
I know
everything.
that was on our agenda
Yeah.
as a possible resolution. I asked the committee if that's something that they would feel that they'd like to support.
Yes.
Yeah.
And am I allowed to if I'm on the state bar compost? I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
As long as you have expressed you don't have a conflict of interest, it's an organization that you're a part of, as long as you've expressed it and you came out in the beginning, I don't think there's a conflict of interest, but you can check with COIG before the full board. That's pretty snatchy that.
You can participate in debate even if you have a conflict, you
Exactly.
just can't
Right.
vote.
And you can also assist
Just
in
have
writing
to
that
stick with it.
resolution. So I already hit Ushma up because we would have to pass this on Wednesday's full board, so I am putting pressure on you. Just, just basically the history of where we're at and then just the obvious thing, which I think we're asking for more time, obviously not to cut the funding, but that's somewhat utopian, but are there other
I
things
don't
that
think
you
there's a
believe?
time thing. I think it's a stopgap funding because the funding ends. Oh, more time, meaning funded through,
That's right, that you have some sort of calendar that's a little more reasonable so people can find jobs and I know you.
I'm sure that's what you're looking for, but
Yeah.
I thought I was going to, I wrote something up.
Oh, okay, well, okay, but,
Do we not have time for that?
let's give it 3 minutes, okay? If you want to just go over the most critical points, just give us sort of bullet points of what it is you're looking to have us support.
Okay, I just wanted to start by just saying that we've been there before and that even when they were going to do recycling in 1985, there was a stopgap between the time when they started to do the outreach to this, to New York City before it actually got into effect. And during that time, there were organizations such as like the Environmental Action Coalition that supplied some kind of funding for people to be able to recycle office paper when there used to be Bronx 2000. So I'm really happy about the call to arms and galvanizing people, and we're very, very grateful for the over the 46,000 people that signed the petition and the hundreds of people that have been acting in our behalf. But at the same time, it really has to be through legislative. And so we're really expecting that in the months from January until the next budget gets passed is when we're going to have to continue to fight and continue to ask everyone to support us, because then that when it comes to passing that next budget, which will be in effect as of July 1st, that's really the time when we're going to be able to make a change. Because right now, the Department of Sanitation's budget cuts for community composting over the next 3 years, we're gonna decimate us anyway. And so in a way, this really brought things to light as far as what was in the works. And so we'd like to reverse that. We'd like to turn that around, and we can see this is be our third demonstration tomorrow morning, where all of our workers at Earth Matter, we're losing 4 people, which is half of our 8 people. They're gonna be out there, and they're gonna be, these are real people that have over 25 years of experience together for the processing of the composting that we do here as a service to the downtown community. So I just wanted to say a couple of points about how the budget cuts are impacting.
Let me just ask you, because we're going to run out of time. So just wanted you to identify what the key issues are that you want this board to support. The whereas of what the history is, part, which I think you could share with us, right? You're aware of it, but what are the key and critical things that we would need to vote on tonight to support? Obviously, you would like to see the funding resurrected. We understand that. Are there other things that specifically you want to present?
Well, we have been serving the downtown community, and if there's any way to galvanize the electeds to make sure that happens, if there's some way that the downtown, the electeds, or there could be some other mechanisms to help us with the stopgap measures. And I do want to leave on a positive note, which is that we have been working with a philanthropic organization that is trying to secure funding for those three small processing organizations, which are ourselves, the Lower East Side Ecology Center, and Big Reeves. We want to support the other botanicals as well, but the focus has been on making sure that the actual physical compost that is a product that is going to be able to be the biggest educational impact for people continues, and that people can actually see that their food scraps are actually being made into something that's a qualitative product. So if that's all the time I have, I think that working with everyone in downtown, we'd like to get to know you better. We work with a lot of people in the community. What we've done with our city council, Chris Marte, is we put our name in the ring for the participatory design for a building on Governor's Island. We'd like the trust to support our existence long-term, and we'd like to be able to have a 365 days a year ability to be able to welcome people into our space to be able to do composting. And we'd like the community to support our efforts by saying, we've been there for 15 years, starting next year. Can we please have a home base? Because that's all we are. We don't have 6 other places. We really focus on the downtown area.
Well, I know the trust is very committed to this.
And we're really hoping that we can secure the funding so that we can build our organization in a way that has a strong foundation.
Thank you so much. Certainly very worthwhile. Does everyone accept the terms that were just identified here as part of our resolution?
I have a question.
Yeah.
And please forgive the sound of this question, but when the time comes that the city composting activity, the city composting program is in full swing, what is it that you believe you would be providing to the community that's over and above that?
Well, right now, this year, 100 million people came to the island. And so 1 million. We've had about 20% this year of the materials that we've processed generated from Governor's Island. So by the time it gets in the full swing, and again, only 1%, I can't wait to see the waste characterization report, but not very much is being taken out of those black bags. So we hope that the shift will be that more material as the island gets developed will be generated on the island, and we can transition to composting on the island. If we take part of that into another form, like digestate in case the island decides to go through biodigestation, that still needs to get composted. And these leaves that they're talking about being mandated, that's not going into the biodigester. There still is a need for organics that are coming out of the landfill, because we're hoping for a large collection rate, a large capture rate, will need to be composted for use locally for the street trees, the parks. We serve Battery Park City Authority. Right now, as of January, that stuff's gonna have to go in the landfill. We serve, a lot
So
of.
your organization does the composting, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we are taking stuff from the High Line. We take all of those browns from the parks, the local parks, and we give back to the Conservancy, to Battery Park City Authority. And that's what our staff do for the compost project, and that's all going away. We service so many training programs. 90 people graduated from our programs that are going out to help with all the education that is needed in order for the composting to be successful.
Thank you. Is that answering your
Yes,
question?
it does.
Not 100% clear to me, but it sounds like it's not a redundancy. It would
It's
be,
not.
it
I
would
don't
be.
It's a transfer. It'll be transferred. We'll take it from the municipality and we'll do more on the island.
Okay, Tammy?
You have Samantha McBride, who has also asked. to
Okay,
speak.
she's the last person.
I would assume she's the last unless you've covered
Yeah,
everything.
I
that
think
Samantha
everybody
was-
here has,
That'd be great if we could
and
give her
I'll
an
quickly vote on
Yeah,
resolutions.
give her
as
to
it
that.
is.
Ver- She can unmute
Hi,
herself.
folks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'll be quick. I submitted written testimony to basically support what Marissa has just said. But let me say, I am a professor of public policy now at Baruch, but I worked for Department of Sanitation for many years. I did those waste characterization studies that you saw, and I worked on the first generation of the organics program. I also then worked at DEP, Bureau of Wastewater Treatment. So if you have any questions that you'd like me to answer, I'd be happy to tell you what I know. But what I will say is it is going to be the most optimistic of scenarios quite a while until there is not going to need to be an Earth Matter or other community composting organizations, if ever. I am on the board of advisors for Earth Matter. Their operation is top-notch professional in terms of how composting sites are operated. They teach and train thousands of kids, teenagers, young people, and adults every year. A number of the people that are trained by them have gone on to jobs in the composting industry. So they do an enormous amount of job development. I am currently working with them on a project involving young engineers, young environmental engineers from CCNY, for example. But overall, I can tell you, having worked on composting for Department of Sanitation, curbside composting, that we would not be here today if it were not for the work of Earth Matter and other community composting organizations, for the very, very small budget requirements that they get in contrast to the 1.2 billion budget of sanitation. The return on investment is beyond description. And I say this as a former civil servant and professional. So
Thank you.
I will stop.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think we have a,
Just last, what's the amount of money we're talking about here that's being cut?
It's 3 million.
so we have a resolution here to support Earth Matters and the other 3 Lower Manhattan groups, right? In terms of remaining as part of the composting landscape. And
Well, I think it's to reinstate 3 million because even the 1.5 is a stopgap. It's not, I don't know what the right term is. It's not,
Long-term?
yeah, not long-term. Yes.
yeah, I think that makes sense. So the reinstatement of that, I think the background is pretty clear. We, of course, supported you before the resolution, so we are now continuing on that. I'll send you that resolution. It's pretty consistent with what was being said tonight, but this has got an urgency and a kind of other layer. So are there other things that you want to include? Otherwise, I think it's a sort of general yes to supporting Earth Matters and reinstating this program.
Are you including in there how much compost that you're putting back, like you're giving back to Battery Park? I mean, that's valuable as well. And
Yeah, we do, in 87% of all the Green Thumb community gardens.
right, is that in the literature that you're sharing there?
I'm
Because
going to give you,
Because I
this
think
and I
that
can
would
email it
have to
to.
be replaced and paid for unless you could get it free someplace else. But I think that's one of the things that.
So I'm not
Yeah,
gonna,
yeah, because that should be.
yeah, so we can identify that in the resolution. Good point, good add. When you send it to me, I'll of course send it to Vishwan also. I'll
I think
forward
we
it.
should include that return on investment point that she was mentioning a moment ago, that
Yeah.
there's a bang for the buck. It sounds like some
Yeah, I
good.
mean,
Rosa talks about.
Oh, okay. All right, this is gonna be the last call on this, so Rosa, you take it away, and then we're gonna move on.
Sorry, if we could just add into the resolution, that we want to support keeping them around at the very, very least until we have the Manhattan, program started up, because obviously there's an enormous gap. And I know that for us, in our building, we actually, have a composting program. It took us a really long time to train people in our building, which has over 400 units to actually compost, but we got everybody to do it. And then when with COVID, the sanitation budget got cut and we stopped composting, suddenly we have 400 units that are now untrained to compost again. And it's that sort of human training that is so difficult to do, and we need that consistency of service to be able to keep these positive behaviors going. So if we could add something about that, since Manhattan's not starting projected until October, and the reality is it could be delayed.
Okay, I think it's a good point. Ushma wants to respond to that.
So, I mean, I get the point, keep it until October 2024, but I disagree with that. I think I said it in my slide, maybe I went too fast. Community compost is a different process than what is done.
I agree with you 100%.
So, Ecosystem,
I agree with you.
soil health,
Okay, so we're not accepting that. We're doing even better, Rosa, bigger picture.
What-
All right.
Okay,
Just, sorry. With that.
okay, I'm in support.
To question.
We're good.
I'm voting. I'm ready to voting. Okay, so we're accepting that. And are we good?
Yeah.
We have a whole group of yes here, or anybody abstaining, anybody recusing? I think so. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you all. I mean, really, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's fabulously interesting. It could be the whole night, but alas, we don't have it. So,
We're not gonna get to a clean city if they keep cutting this stuff back.
yeah, no, it's really, really important. Thank you so much for all of you for coming in person. All right, well, we're moving on to an equally as interesting and important area, which is green alternatives to the food cart power generation, food cart industry. Really incredibly interesting. I am so delighted. Now, this is coming through one of our board members, Joel Grayson right here, who brought this to our attention, who thought, why is it that, these food carts, they shouldn't be running off diesel, they should have, they should be connected to the grid. And I remember hearing about a pilot program 100 years ago, and I put him in touch. And anyway, to make a long story short, the Street Vendor Project, the head of it, our executive director of the Street Vendor Project from the Urban Justice Center is here with us tonight, Mohammed Attia, and is going to present about the food cart industry and how we can make it a more green power generation on these carts, and a little bit about the carts themselves, which are very fascinated by. Those must be from them, which I do. So I really want to thank you so much for taking the time and also hanging in there for the last hour and 15 minutes. So welcome, Mohammed. Thank you, and thank you, Joel, very much for your contribution. And in addition, right after, before we do the questions, we are also being joined by Kimberly Williams, who's the Manhattan Regional and Community Affairs person from Con Edison. It was very nice that they came. They have worked on projects similar to this one, different group. And so they have some thinking on this issue, needless to say. They're willing to speak a little bit about it. They couldn't get the team that actually works directly with it, but they have a representative, Kimberly, who will do the best she can, and she promises to get answers to questions if she can't answer them.
2 Con Ed reps.
Sorry?
We have 2 Con Ed reps with us.
We have 2 Con Ed reps.
But taking away your slides.
Okay, go ahead. Mohammed, welcome, thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. Again, I'm Mohammed Atiyah. I'm the Managing Director of the Street Vendor Project. We are a part of the nonprofit organization called the Urban Justice Center. I want to make my presentations so short and so into the point because I'm pretty sure people will have a lot of questions for me. So I want to spend the first couple of minutes just talk about SVP as an organization, what we do, and the vending system. And then I'm going to jump into the environmental justice program we have been working on for the last couple of years. So starting with SVP, we were founded back in 2001 as a part of the Urban Justice Center to become a member-led organization for street vendors. We have a bit more than 2,900 members. Several hundred of them are active. They come to regular meetings. They lead our work, which is vastly about advocacy, legislative advocacy, making sure that we have a fair system in New York City for street vendors. Our membership is so diverse, and we cover 5 boroughs, so people from Staten Island, the Bronx, Corona and Queens, and here, of course, downtown Manhattan. They all come to us for everything that's related to street vending. The bread and butter and the core of the work is organizing, leadership development, building a strong membership that can advocate for themselves. And of course, along with that, we run different programs like legal support, small business consultations, environmental justice, and other programs that helps the vendors as the smallest businesses in our city. Maybe we can move down the slides. So a little bit about what I share, but we can skip that. We can go to the next one. Maybe the next two. Yeah, this our vision and mission. Happy to share all of that. Yeah, this is a very important piece of the conversation for people to be aware of what we're dealing with, right? There are so many obstacles and issues that street vendors are facing. The biggest one and the most important piece is barriers to start the business, barriers to get into the street vending system, mainly the lack of license and permits. To give you a context, back in the 70s and 80s, New York City government placed caps on the number of permits and licenses available for vendors. And as a consequence to that, there were an underground market created for the existing permits in case of food vendors, in the case of running a food vending business. And there is also a lot of vendors who cannot afford dealing with this underground market, who are basically taking the risk and going out to sell without the required permit. And they are taking a really significant risk of being arrested, getting $1,000 ticket, or having their merchandise confiscated. There is a lot of criminalization when it gets to street vending. As for now, people have been receiving criminal tickets for any vending related violations under the admin code, which is really sad, as tiny as not having your license for example. If a vendor forgot their license in the back pocket, they can go to criminal court for that. There is a bill that will change this. I'll talk about it in a minute.
Street vendors, anything. It's not just a cart, right? It's not
Yes,
just
so
a
street
coffee
vendors,
cart.
great question. So street vendors, we mean food carts, food trucks, tables, merchandise, artwork, anyone who's selling goods, services, or food in the streets or sidewalks. Great question.
Sorry, I just want to make sure I
There
understood.
is so much enforcement, excessive enforcement by different agencies. Now, we're friends with DSNY because they house the Street Vendor Enforcement Office since April. But besides that, you have the NYPD is heavily involved in some areas. They're not interested in giving that up, which is really sad. You have the DOHMH, Health Department. You have so many other agencies who are involved with street vendor enforcement. The fines are super high. The fine for not having a license can cost you $1,000. And you can imagine for someone who's making a couple $100 a day selling mangoes or churros at the corner, that could be their monthly profit. There are so many arbitrary rules, a lot of stuff that don't make any sense just because somebody said something and they believe it makes sense. And there is little to no support from the government, which is really sad. We're seeing some changes recently from the SBS as a wonderful agency providing a lot of support to the small business community. So they just started creating services and support to the street vendors community. But before last year, there was no support, only fines, only arrests, only tickets. Next slide. So a little bit of changes to the system. If people ever heard of us, you probably would know that a couple of years ago, the city council passed a historic legislation to increase the number of food vending permits. So there will be 4,400 new food vending permits coming into the city. The rollout started this year, about 10 months late, but it started. Within the same bill, the Office of Street Vendor Enforcement was created. It was housed in DCWP, Department of Consumer and Worker Protection. Then it was moved earlier this year, as I mentioned, to the SNY. And also there was the Street Vendor Advisory Board that was created 2 years ago after this bill. And this board is very diverse. It has representation from the street vendors community, but also small business folks, real estate, unions, and the 5 main agencies that are involved with the street vending system. So this is a major win for the vendors community, but soon after that, we said, okay, whatever happened in 2021 is not enough. We need to reach a point where there is a fair system. And we have learned that Intro 1116, although it was great and historic, it felt like a drop in the bucket because of 2 main issues. The first one, for the food vendors, this bill, after full implementation, after 10 years, will not cover half of the vendors who are on the wait list right now. A part of the bill required the health department to create a wait list for people who are eligible to receive those licenses. The wait list has more than 10,000 names. So after 10 years, when all the 4,000 permits are out, you still have 6,000 plus people don't even have a chance to receive one of those permits. And besides that, there are thousands of others who didn't even make it into the wait list. So that's for food. The second piece, which is very important, is merchandise vendors. Merchandise vendors are hopeless at this point. They don't have any chance to get a license from the city except for waiting unknown number of years. Just to give you a sense of where things are at, recently, by recently I mean in 2016, DCWP opened the waitlist after 30 plus years of the waitlist being closed for this license. And 11,900 people went to DCWP to register their name to obtain one of those licenses when they become available. And guess what is the cap is set to? Only 853 licenses. It's a very random number. I know a lot of numbers in government are random and arbitrary, but I think this one will get the trophy. Like 853. It's not 850, it's not 900, it's not 1,000, it's 853, very precise. However, people would wait for many, many years to obtain one of those licenses because of this gap. So we collectively created a coalition that we call the Street Vendor Justice Coalition of 10 organizations, including SVP, but also the Arab American Association, United for Small Business, CARE New York, JFITCH, New York Immigration Coalition, Writers Alliance. So many great organizations came together and said, we want to make sure that we have a fair system and a just system to the street vendors. So the coalition was formed back in 2021, and we have identified 4 main changes to the vending system to make sure that we have a just system in our city. If you go to the next slide, the first piece is full formalization of the vending industry. And how to do that? You make the business license available for everyone. So make sure that vendors have access to license and permits, just like any other businesses. Next slide.
3,000.
I don't understand what that means.
Good question. So
I'm just going to interrupt for a second. I just want to remind you that, I asked that Mohammed go over the sort of history and some of the Justice Center's initiatives, but remember, this is the Environmental Protection Committee, and we will be running a resolution only on the environmental. So just moving it along, I mean, we could dive into a lot of
Stuff
that.
goes into LZE for
Yeah.
economic development, and they have presented in there before.
So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I did. So go ahead. And sorry, Richard.
Fair point.
Yeah, just want to make sure we don't.
I can answer that.
I was going there.
Yeah.
I can answer that real quick and then power through.
Terrific,
the
thank you.
rest. So just to answer that, right now, you cannot obtain a license to become a vendor from the city, and you cannot even put your name on the wait list because of the laws that are written right now. Unless the laws change, vendors don't have a chance to get a license or a permit from the city. That's how it works. I know it's a very difficult concept to
No.
imagine, but sadly, that's how it operates. I'm happy to talk offline.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, because it's
That's
Yes.
LTE.
The second piece, which is real quick, is repealing the criminal liability. So make sure that just like any other business, street vendors face civil summonses and civil fines, not criminal. The third piece is creating a sector within SPS to provide trainings and workshops and support to the street vendors community. The fourth piece, in the next slide, is reviewing some of the citing rules that are very difficult to comply with in order to create more legal vending locations. I want to move to the next slide. The EJVB. Okay, so the Environmental Justice for Vendors by Vendors is a program that we started a couple of years ago with support from the New York Community Trust, our best fans, best supporters in helping us doing that. And as a grassroots organization, we started always with the vendor, right? Making sure that our vendors are centered in the conversations. We started with a survey with 200 food vendors who have carts or trucks and use generators to really understand what's going on. We have conversations with so many stakeholders, like 20 cart manufacturers, 75 or more plus technical support partners, coalition members, folks from different organizations, and we have reached out to battery manufacturers because the battery is a really big piece in this conversation. Next slide. So the problem and the opportunity here. If you ever seen a food cart or a food truck, and I assume that everyone has at least once, you would notice two big things, right? Inside the cart, there are some cooking equipment. They usually run on propane. And next to the cart or inside the cart, but facing outside, there is a device that is running and idling all the time. And this device is a generator. This is how you get electricity in a food cart. Electricity in food carts and food trucks are essential. Without them, you cannot run the business because you have lights, you have fridge and freezer, you have fans for the ventilation system. You have so many equipment inside that runs on electricity. And if you don't have an electricity source, you will not be in business. So what we have noticed so far that vendors are exposed to a lot of emissions, a lot of bad smoke that is right next to them. We have seen that the vendors have practices that are not great, not for them, not for the city, and not for the neighborhoods. And what are we trying to do in this program? Trying to identify solutions and alternatives to these issues. We have seen the health department, for example, coming out several times in the hearings in city council and talk about the fact that increasing food vending permits will create more pollution in the city because the vendors and the cars and the trucks use these generators, and you come up with all the figures on how much emissions each generator generates, which is really sad and true, but looking at what kind of support did the city offer, pretty much nothing. When it gets to this topic of environmental justice for the vendors, there is zero support. We haven't seen much effort, with one exception I'll mention in a minute. So this is our friend over there, the Honda generator. I know how it feels with the Honda, but we have several models that are very, very popular, the usual suspects, 3 or 4 different models. And you can read all you want about their emissions. They are way higher than the average vehicle, and they don't run in the neighborhood for a few minutes. They are running as long as the cart is operating. So maybe we go to the next slide. So we looked at the cards and thinking about the typologies. It is not what one size fits all, but these are the most common cards we have seen. The first one on the left is the green card, which is those tiny cards that self-reproduce. They use pretty minimal electricity. Then there is the smaller card, the hot dog, the shish kebab, kind of like really smaller ones. And then there is the breakfast or lunch cart, which is like the medium or larger. And then there is the food truck, right? You can add as many categories as you want, but these are like the most common ones. Maybe you can move to the next slide. The solution, what are we proposing here? So we have a problem, we have understood the situation. How can we offer solutions? We're looking at a near term and long term. The near term, I don't want to call it the low hanging fruit because it's not that easy to be called so, but it's something that can eventually happen in the very near term is finding alternatives to the gas powered generator. We're looking at this big engine that is sitting in the cart running all day long. How can we find alternatives that has zero emissions? So we looked basically at batteries. Look at lithium-ion batteries and really well advanced batteries that could theoretically be used and support the vendors in running their businesses without relying on these generators. Of course, we have found a few challenges coming up. The first piece was the lack of trust in batteries. Vendors were not confident or comfortable investing tens of thousands of dollars on a battery pack that didn't know if it's going to work or not, right? There are so many challenges, and I'm going to go over them in a minute. But the other piece, which is really important, is looking at fully electrifying a food cart or a food truck. By fully electrifying, I mean even looking at the cooking equipment. How can we get the vendors to stop using propane to run 100% on electricity? There are some models that have been out there. You'll probably see them. I'm going to talk about them in a minute, and I'm going to share some of the problems with them.
Can I go to the next slide?
No, just one last comment about the long-term solutions, which is something that we are really looking into the future. And the more we talk about these ideas now, the sooner this long-term solution should be coming up, is looking at expanding the infrastructure of our streets and the garages, the commissaries. For context, all these cars and trucks, they go to a commissary towards the end of the day to park there, clean their cars, store the food, and then go out the next day. Next slide. So looking at just quickly what's out there or what has been explored. So the first thing is the RNG. Of course, people have tried it. We've seen few trucks running on natural gas, which was really interesting, and some sort of hybrid between the natural gas and the batteries. People have tried solar power before. Sadly, it was not very successful because in the city you don't get a lot of sun and it's very expensive. It's not so reliable to be out in the streets every day. The cars and trucks drive every day, all day long. So it could be maybe tricky. The rechargeable batteries is something that we have tested in a pilot for about a year now, and we are seeing a lot of promising results. And finally, grid connection. How can we connect those cars or trucks to the grid, especially those that have probably really high power needs that a battery will never serve them unless they buy a Tesla battery, like 100 kilowatt hour battery, which is crazy. So I want to talk a bit about a couple of pieces. We can skip this slide for a second. We talked about the coalition building that we had. I want to jump into the pilot. So maybe this guy is familiar to you because he works in Zuccotti Park, which is pretty close to here, but his name is Mahmoud Musa, one of our members who tested a battery for a couple of weeks and was able to use this battery instead of his generator. He loved the battery so much. His worker, his partner, was so happy about the battery. The battery doesn't emit anything, which is great. It doesn't shake, it doesn't vibrate. It's pretty stable. However, he had some comments and issues with it, which is the fact that it's so heavy, it is so expensive to buy, and it could be really difficult to work with if you have a longer shift, right? For context, SVP purchased those batteries. We had to go purchase a few batteries to get the vendors to test them out because vendors were not interested in spending that much money on them.
How much?
Well, it depends. Like it starts with $5,000 all the way to $20,000 for some of the packs we got. Another vendor here who's like really far away from here in LaGuardia College, Mando. You probably remember him from Netflix episode. If you watch Street Food and Western Street Food, he was featured in Netflix. However, he is using the battery now for the last 6 months. It's pretty stable. It's running his business very well. The battery, the battery's capacity is pretty minimal. It is 5 kilowatt hour, which is pretty small compared to the other cards. But his business is so unique that it's fitting this battery in particular. His shift is 8 hours, which is very, very small shift compared to others who are running their business 14, 16 hours a day. So that's also helping him being successful with the battery. He's interested in buying his own battery. We're gonna connect him with the manufacturer and hopefully they can compare. Another example in Astoria. So this food truck is in Astoria and Stanway. They use the 7,000 watt generator. This is like a monster. Looks like a diesel engine that runs the truck. And we were able to get them a battery pack that is 15 kilowatt hour. It's a very massive battery pack. Costs about $13,000. And the battery pack was able to power his truck for 10 hours, which is great. However, their shift is 19 hours a day. They go out 10 o'clock in the morning and they close like 5, 6 in the morning the next day. So they're on some crazy business hours, which I respect. They have 2, 3 shifts, but batteries is not the solution for that. In terms of next steps, what are we looking at? Full truck electrification, scaling the generator replacement, and looking at infrastructure reviving, making sure that we have an infrastructure that is stable, that can support electrifying food cars and food trucks, and mainly can support the charging. Because one of the biggest issues we have with the batteries is where and how you're gonna charge them. Right now, if you have 2 or 3 battery packs being charged in a commissary, that's not gonna be a problem. That's a great idea. Any commissary can do it. But once you have 40 or 50 of those being charged at night all at once, it's gonna be impossible because the grid that the commissaries are having are just very standard grid. They are not well equipped to do like heavy duty charging with large capacity. So next slide. We can't skip those. We talked broadly about a few of these ideas, maybe the next one.
Next one, pass this.
Yeah, maybe the next one too. Yeah, so another piece of the equation besides the batteries and thinking about the right battery pack to replace those generators is connecting to the grid. So you see here there are like 3 different ideas being presented. One is rechargeable batteries would be great, would be effective for certain vendors. Again, it's not one size fits all, but looking at grid connection. I want to take a pause here and just go back to what Alice shared about this pilot back in the days, 100 years ago. Yes, it was about 10 years ago under de Blasie's administration. There was a company that connected with the mayor's office to do this pilot by Union Square, literally on 17th and Union Square East. And they have connected a vendor to the grid. Basically, there is like a little pole coming out of the sidewalk with an outlet, and the vendor connects there, and everyone is so happy. And the pilot was so successful. We were really impressed by the outcome. However, we asked what are the next steps here. They said, we're shutting down the pilot and it's not moving anymore, which was really sad. So maybe we can not reinvent the wheel, but we can revisit the wheel and be like, let us show us please how this pilot works.
Why did they shut it down?
We have no idea. There was no interest from the mayor's office. That's what we were told. Like the third option, which is the hybrid solution, which is again a truck that runs on natural gas plus battery packs, and the natural gas runs in a way that charges the battery and the battery powers the truck or the cart. The next slide. Fully electrified carts, they are out there. We have seen examples. There is this company called Zeph. Probably people have seen Blank Street, the fancy coffee cart. Probably you've seen some carts by the Vessel near Hudson Yards. All of them are operated by a company called Zeph. They run 100% electrified carts. They run on pretty much the same lithium-ion batteries. very high capacity batteries that supports everything. However, with the cooking equipment, there is a very limited power and capacity for these cards. Basically, when we get a taco vendor to run a busy spot using their card, it's not going to be great. If you go to the vessel and look at Toro, Rojo, Berea card, you will find that the line is not really big. Things are really slow over there. Once we tried this model with halal food cards, for example, operating in Times Square, the model did not work. Basically, they were sending a charging truck to charge a cart for 15 hours straight to keep the cart running. So basically, the batteries did not serve with the cooking, the griddle, the fryer, and all of that. That's it for me. Let me pause and see if people have any questions.
Thank you. Thank you. I think I'm gonna just do the same thing I did the last time. We have Kimberly Williams here from Con Edison. I don't know, Kimberly, do you have anything you want to add right now, or would you rather just respond to Q&A? I can't remember if there was any presentation you had. Kimberly
Hi.
Williams.
No, good afternoon. Can I start my video?
Yes, you're on. Thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you. We're not usually on WebEx. We have lots of rules here. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kimberly Williams. I'm with Con Edison's Regional and Community Affairs team. I'm joined tonight by Alina Suriel, who's also a member of our team. Thank you so much for having us, and thank you, Mohammed, for that presentation. I also enjoyed listening in on the compost conversation. So we don't have a formal presentation for you tonight. Unfortunately, our engineering team that would be supporting this process, if it were to occur, couldn't join us, but we can just walk through very quickly as a brief response about the Simply Grid project, what we know of what happened there, and about grid connectivity. And then if there are any questions, Alina and I are happy to respond with what we can tonight. And then we're also happy to get answers and respond at another time. So as everybody on the call, I believe knows, but in case you don't, Con Edison's the local utility. We deliver electric, gas, and steam service to customers in New York City and Westchester. Manhattan's the only one with steam, so congratulations to everyone here. And as part of our commitment to a clean energy future, we do welcome invitations to explore innovative technologies that will move the city closer to where we need to be while continuing to operate in a way that prioritizes safety. And safety and reliability are huge parts of everything that we do. So as Mohammed shared, in 2013, Con Edison did participate with several other entities in a pilot, notably Simply Grid, ran the pilot along with several city agencies. And the goal was to plug food carts directly into the grid. As you can imagine, there are numerous benefits, which we hope to derive from the effort, mostly decreasing air and noise pollution. Unfortunately, the pilot was not successful. One cart was tested in the Union Square area. It did receive a lot of media attention, but ultimately it was just not a scalable effort. It wasn't something that we would have been able to reproduce at a mass effort. A lot of this isn't necessarily within Con Edison's purview or realm of control, but we can discuss that from Con Edison's perspective, there were a few issues that the model presented. So a food cart would be considered street furniture. I think one of the most common things that we could compare it to would be a bus shelter. And the food cart owner would need to get past several hurdles. So Mohammed discussed the issues around permitting. That's a city issue. We're not involved with that. The city would also need to grant a franchise for a specific location if we're talking about plugging into the grid. So as it is right now, I don't believe food carts have a franchise to operate in a specific location. We just happen to know where many of our favorite food carts will be on any given day. They also would need approval. There needs to be approval of this design, if you can imagine, directly plugging into the street by the city, and a means for Con Edison to charge the vendor for installation of a service at a specific location, and that service then has to be metered so that a customer would be billed. If the food cart isn't necessarily going to be considered something for the greater good, that means that we wouldn't socialize that cost amongst all Con Edison ratepayers. So it would be incumbent upon the business owner to pay for that service. And so since the city doesn't really permit specific locations for vending, it becomes a really difficult issue to track, and tracking which customer is utilizing the service becomes very difficult. It's not the same as a bus shelter or a Link kiosk where it's very clear who the entity is using the service, and Con Edison can identify the customer. But as I said before, we're willing to explore new and innovative ways to deliver energy to customers throughout the city. This would have to be in conjunction and in collaboration with the city's agencies. So DoIT would be involved, the DOT would be involved, amongst others, our energy services team, who could not join us tonight, but they're the ones who are responsible for setting up any new service connections, is willing to engage in conversations with the city and appropriate groups on ways that they can move forward, but it requires fixed locations for the connections to the city, established customer accounts, as well as conduits for billing. So definitely want to do our part in moving towards, reducing pollution across the city, environmental justice, and everything that was shared earlier, but there are a few limitations on our end. And I just wanted to make sure that those were clear, and also what Con Edison's role is versus the regulatory part, and then also what the city's role would be.
Really helpful, Kimberly, thanks. There's a lot of hands up flying around here. So we've heard from the street car, we've heard from Con Ed. Okay, I'm going to start with the instigator, Joel Grace.
Do you know if vendors tend to stay in the same location? And also, I'm assuming if this was installed, they would probably stay at that location because it would save them so much money.
99.9% of vendors operate in the same location year round. Probably one vendor at 1,000 change location due to certain issues.
Okay.
Although they are not legally required to stay in the same spot. But Sam Falafel is a Zuccotti Park on the same square for the last 35 years. Just an example.
Cool, yeah. Really nice to meet you. I think there are a few hotspots of vendors like Zuccotti Park that are by street lamps, which are always populated by street vendors. So from a mobility or permanent standpoint, that would probably be a good place to do a pilot. As for infrastructure, so you said that the Simply Grid was not feasible. Was that because of the funding sources? Was it too expensive to install, and there wasn't any funding for that? Or and also my second part of the question is, could the electricity be drawn from street lamps by installing an outlet on them so that you don't need to create new infrastructure as much?
So I said it wasn't scalable. And my understanding for why that is partially due to the way that the city operates, where they place food street carts and licensing. Con Edison doesn't decide where a street cart is going to be. So I understand that, 99% of them are in the same location every day. Where I get my tea from every morning tends to be at the same location. He's there every morning. But for us to install something at a location, there needs to be a customer that we are responding to. If that was to be the street lamp, then that would be the DOT, which is New York City. So that would be that New York City is creating a program with this vendor in order to allow their energy to be used for this item.
Someone needs to pay for it.
Right.
Hey, Jeff, I think I just heard this.
My questions are for Kimberly, I think primarily on the practicality of this. I understand the sort of the billing and metering is an issue that needs to be dealt with, but a lot has happened over the last 10 years in terms of individualized billings. I know places like Texas, you have all sorts of different vendors that end up supplying electricity at any given location. So I kind of have to believe that that issue is solvable, but I don't want to minimize how difficult it is. My question is, on the grid itself, is the existing grid that feeds streetlights and so forth, is it sufficient to add a whole bunch of carts that might even be hooking up cooking equipment, or would there need to be, I mean, does that need to be bolstered, or is it relatively straightforward to simply to add a new connection that's like a small house effectively?
For an individual street cart, right? And of course, understanding that if you were going to do all the street carts across the city, that would be a different story. For an individual street car at a location, the grid should be able to manage the additional load that one individual street cart would bring. Anytime an additional customer is being brought on to the system, our engineering team does a load study at that location to ensure that we can support the load that that customer will be bringing. So that would be a conversation that's had, and that's part of bringing a customer onto the system. That's looked at that specific location, what that would mean and what that would require, and the costs then involved for that customer.
If we were to scale this to lots and lots of street carts, would the answer to that question change?
I don't know off the top of my head. That would definitely be a question that our engineers would have to answer, based off of also what the average street cart is pulling.
Okay, thank you.
Tammy.
I love the idea of electric generators and fully electrified carts. I have a lot of concerns about trying to attach to street lamps. There are rules about how far away from curb cut you need to, the food carts need to park, and about clear path and daylighting intersections. And oftentimes I see, especially in dense environments like Lower Manhattan, there isn't 10 feet between the curb cut and the cart. And if there's a light pole and you're on the side of the light pole, you're not going to be able to maintain that either. So I'm not convinced that light poles are the right answer, because I think that pedestrian safety is intense, and you have bicycle signs. You have so many things that are now competitive on our sidewalks and in our intersections that I would be super concerned about attachment with wires. And, this light pole isn't working, so they get an extension and they go a couple more down. I would love to see the technology improve, so there could be electrified batteries, and that the carts themselves could find a way to become more economical. And about the rollout, I think on our board, you hear Colin, who has talked many times about the mayor's office and the promise to install, even in the parking garages that New York City owns, charging stations for the vehicles, which we can't seem to get the city to pay for those, let alone anything else that we're trying to, kind of move forward on green initiatives with. So I wonder, there are food carts all over the world, and we are certainly not in the front of the green initiatives. Have you done, what do they do in some of the Scandinavian countries, if there are food carts out there, who seem to be so much smarter and more ahead of us on green initiatives?
Yeah, that's my question too.
That's gonna be where I'd want to see it go. I'd like to see less wires everywhere, less pollution everywhere, but most importantly, clear pedestrian.
And is there a model anywhere in the world for what you want to do?
Great question. So nothing in the sense of a formal study or a research that we have done, but we have looked into several cities here in the nation and otherwise across the globe. And we have seen that so many cars and trucks are moving towards being electric, whether that means being running on batteries or connecting to the grid. Funny enough, last month, and I wish I included some pictures here to show you, but Last month I was in Puerto Rico, and there is like a street market with more than 20 vendors, stands, and all of them connect to the light lamps. I took some pictures. I should have posted them on my slides just to show you. I'm with you 100%.
They have lots of grid issues down there. I don't want to copy them, no offense.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, like generally speaking, none of the vendors are using generators on that stretch of block with like more than 20 vendors using tents. All of them are pretty safe. With you 100% on pedestrian safety and making sure that the 10-foot crosswalk is being, like followed. We have a lot of enforcement mechanism. We have several agencies that will take shifts to enforce these laws, regardless of the connection to the grid or the, like the street lamps. When it gets to street lamps, I think, again, it's not gonna be every single street lamp that has like an outlet. There should be a feasibility study. The experts should come and visit and see if that possible, safe, reliable to do in this corner, in this particular place or not. And I think that we should have a system in place where anything we're doing moving forward, whether it's connecting to the lamp, creating a new outlet, like a new pole, getting batteries, whatever we're doing, it has to be really safe and reliable to the vendors and making sure we're not digging a hole for ourselves or the vendors themselves.
Point of information.
Other questions, and then we'll repeat. Oh, go ahead.
I have a couple of questions just clarifying, and I hope that I'll make them very short. But the first question, Kimberly, I would like to get clarity on. How does it work with EV charging stations? Now we have an EV charging station in the public. Do they have a specific customer that is contracted with them to come to them every day charge? Or is it like a public service that people will go and like pay as they go and pay as they use the service?
So the side charging pilot, which there are only about, I believe, 6 across Manhattan. Unfortunately, right now they're all north of Prospect Central Park and north. There's one which is for municipal purposes south of Central Park. That is a special agreement between Con Edison and the city of New York. So general EV charging is done through a program called Power Ready, and that is a customer-based program. But for these 6 street side, it may be 7, please don't quote me on the exact number, but for the street side charging pilot that happened in Manhattan, that's a special agreement, and that is not, that cost is socialized. But general street side projects, so street lights, kiosks, anything like that, that is a customer-based charge. And anything that you see done off of a restaurant is typically with being charged to that restaurant. So we can do a drop or a service off of a specific building if that building has agreed.
But the EV charging stations have the contract or agreement with the city and Concord, and then they charge the customers who would park their vehicle to charge it. Do I have the right understanding?
Yeah. That's the business model for the street side charging pilot.
So theoretically, separate poles, separate outlets could be made if everyone comes into an agreement and comes into a system where
that would have to be approved by the state, so New York's Public Service Commission, and they would have to agree that that cost could be socialized across New York City's utility ratepayers, which I doubt they would agree to that, but that's how it would have to go. It's not like Con Edison could say, oh, we want to do this program, let's just go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, is there any chance we could have the vendors pay for their own electricity by putting meters on the outlets, and then having a system where you could scan the outlet to use it and then be charged through an app?
Which is what they do now, right?
Well, that would still, so my understanding, and I don't know I don't know all the intricacies of how Simply Grid was supposed to work. I think that was part of it, right? That there was going to be some kind of cloud-based system where the vendors would then go through Simply Grid to say, hi, this is us. That still requires then well, not Simply Grid, but a customer to assume that cost, and I don't know why they didn't follow through on that.
Yeah, yeah. I don't see why it would have to be a cost that's socialized. It seems like if the vendor would be probably happy to pay for it because it's a much cheaper rate than what they currently pay for their electricity. If they were to pay for that, if it could be a feasible pilot.
I think some of these answers lie outside of Con Edison. We're happy to work with other entities to explore ideas. And we're also happy to, come and have conversations with the community when invited.
Other questions or comments? Tammy?
So one of the questions or fears that I would have is if you're gonna plug into a Con Ed hub that is attached to a building, no one's doing it for free. They're gonna charge an upcharge, which I don't even know, if that's legal or feasible, but one would assume, let's just say you were parked outside, I'll pick a random address off the top of my head, nobody included in this. You're parked outside 35 Wall Street, great location, very, very busy. You plug into their building, they're gonna wanna be paid for your usage, and most likely, in the economy and world that we live in, they're gonna charge you an upcharge, same as they're gonna charge anybody who, is paying rent inside. Because you're not paying rent, but you wanna use their electric. And that's something that I think you need to include as a conversation that goes in that. There's no altruism in capitalism, or very little of it, when it comes to that kind of a thing. I'm not sure what the legal is, right? Because they're not sub-metering out to you necessarily. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. But that'd be something that you need to consider. It could be, in the long run, far more economical to be self-reliant. Expensive at the upstart to maybe work on grants, but in the long run, to be able to own it and recharge it versus plugging into somebody else and paying rent on it would probably be something you need to at least consider, in my opinion.
Thanks so much for sharing that. It makes a lot of sense, and that's why we like the idea of something that is regulated by the city, by Con Ed, by a private company, where the vendors can pay directly to the amount of electricity they are needing. We have seen some examples. Funny enough, what you're sharing is exactly happening. In very few cars and trucks, you see like an extension coming from above the truck, connecting to the store, and there is some sort of agreement. And luckily, these agreements are working pretty well. And vendors are so happy. They're not using the generator. They're not spending $10, $20 a day on gas. And everyone is happy about these agreements.
So how can we be helpful as the community board? This was great as a presentation, it's a fascinating concept. It's a great sort of edifying moment to know more about the industry and green alternatives. But are there things that you think are real asks? Are we looking, and I'm asking the committee this, to support a pilot in Lower Manhattan of something like this? Or I'm not sure, where exactly this can go right now. I know we saw one 10 years ago, and to Jeff's point, 10 years later, things have changed, and hopefully for the better in certain ways. So I'm not sure what this is to everybody, what we would like to do here, but are we talking about a resolution? Do we want more information? Do we want kind of come in with DOT and,
I think they have that deal.
I think we need
So far.
I think they have to bring a working model of something that they're looking for. I think you're still trying to figure out who pays for what, where to set up, is there a pole, not a pole, a plug, a lamp?
Well, the thing is, the poles are owned by DOT, they're not owned by Con
Yeah, but I
Ed.
think they need to have a discussion and
Yeah.
model.
Yeah.
They've been
We're not
discussing it
facilitating
for a
that.
lot of years. Can I just ask,
a question?
let me just ask if, Mohammed, do you have a response to that? What are you, look, to the sort of how others can be helpful to you? What are you thinking that? I know you have addressed a lot of these issues and spent a fair amount of time. Are you looking for money to support further research? No, not yet.
Yes.
I think you're the one to answer that.
So like just a couple of things right off the top of my head. The first thing, it would be great if Kimberly can share with us like any literature that you can share about the pilot project to really understand how it worked, the cost, the challenges you faced, how feasible, why it is not scalable. I think that's gonna help us so much inform our thinking and inform the whole program. So we can brainstorm internally as a team with the coalition we have of experts and trying to move forward with something really reasonable. The other piece is also I want to share with folks, and Joel was with us the other day in Jackson Heights. Councilmember Krishnan from Jackson Heights is really interested also in piloting something in his area. And he's going to be reaching out to Con Ed and DOT and the mayor's office and everyone who's involved to have a conversation about the feasibility of this. But in terms of tangible asks for SVP, we are so underfunded as a small nonprofit organization. Right now, the funds basically dried out. We don't have any staff member who's working on the program except myself. And I have like a couple of other things to do at the same time. So trying to be reasonable with the expectations. More resources are definitely needed, more staff, more capacity. So of course, support from the city government to expand in our research, to expand in some specific feasibility studies on connecting to the grid, on expanding and scaling the usage of batteries, on outreach and education to the vendors community, right? Because you can have all these great ideas, but if the vendors don't know about it, none of that will happen. So much work that needs to take place that will require a lot of resources. So that's pretty much it at this stage.
That's very helpful. So Kimberly, can you provide sort of, we had a hard time. I actually did a little research myself on Simply Grid. I couldn't find anything, and obviously you did your due diligence. Is there anything that you can dredge up from Con Ed about that program from 10 years ago and what really?
There's no write-up or anything packaged. So what I have is kind of what I shared with you when Zach initially reached out about the meeting, kind of, from a bit of collective history and understanding why this didn't work. I am willing to share that with you as well, Mohammed, just kind of some of the limitations that Con Edison saw. I do think there may be also, and I'm happy to try to also connect you with DOT and Do It or whoever you may need to connect with on the city side if somebody there may have a little bit more institutional memory and additional resources that kind of explained why this may have stopped, as well as the gentleman who ran this from Simply Grid. I don't have his contact information, but his name's all over the articles online, and maybe there's a little bit more background there that could be helpful.
It sounds like a lovely offer. I'm gonna call on people that I haven't heard from, so. Well,
Thank you. Hi, Kimberly, can I get your contact information? Because I would actually like to do Simply Grid pilot project on Gotham Park's site and see how that would work. And we would actually be the payee, I guess, or payer. And we are looking to try to do a vendor project. Or kiosk.
Well, I think be in touch with Rosa, with obviously Mohammed and the Street Vendors Project. It's just a separate project or something.
Thank you.
Rosa, sorry, I don't know if you can hear me. I was asking, is this something where you could team up with the efforts of the Street Vendor Project, or is this something separate that you're looking to do?
I don't know. I'd want to talk with Kimberly first and sort of see what's involved.
So you're basically looking for a new service, like a service connection.
Yes.
Well, I'll certainly make the introduction, Rosa, to Mohammed via email so that there is a follow-up there. I think that seems to make a lot of sense. with Kimberly, so we don't have a lot of different people doing the same thing or a similar thing, and we can kind of join forces. Teammanship here would probably be helpful. And
If I understand correctly, the vendor, the mechanism to recharge an electric vehicle uptown, I've seen the poles on 70th Street. Who owns that piece of equipment? Is
The
that?
DOT.
I'm sorry?
The DOT, Department of Transportation.
DOT. So it isn't
So
an
we
outside vendor.
I mean, so the actual vendor, I believe, is Flow, if I remember correctly. It's Flow Charger. They're the ones who actually create and send it out. But it was a joint venture between Con Edison doing the installation and working with the DOT, who cited the locations, worked with the various community boards. So what is that? 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 on where they were going to be placed and finding the locations.
Could that serve as a model for the street vendor electrification project?
Not in the same way. Not by our tariff. So not by the way in which we are regulated to provide service to customers across New York City and Westchester.
can you just expand on that a little bit?
So for any installation of electric service, and this is any building that's adding new additional service because of additional need or additional load coming on, or a new building being situated, and whether that's commercial or residential, that property bears the cost of the installation for that service. And so if we are installing services throughout the city for a business, that business would bear the cost of the installation.
Thanks. Any other questions, Richard?
I don't actually have a question, but it seems to me that the idea of connecting to the grid, it's because of the regulatory issues, the infrastructure issues, the technological issues. We are far, far, far away from that. I mean, decade, if then, I'll bet. Because there are many, 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 many issues that have to be resolved for the street vendors. I would bet it's a decade, if that. What I do think, though, there's an issue here that does need to be addressed. And perhaps the most important way to get at that is the expanding the short-term issues that you talk about, the hybrid solutions, the battery solutions. I just don't see any opportunity here in the reasonable near term of addressing the grid connection. But hybrid solutions could be a way. So maybe some research into that, pilot projects around that. But to me, that would be the focus. If you're going to address any of these issues in my lifetime, I think it's going to be through that. You're just never going to connect to the grid with all of that.
Well, I think as you're speaking, Richard, I think that if you were expecting grid connectivity that requires such a massive investment on the part of the city that they would impose a regulatory scheme on the street vendors that would change that industry entirely. It would all of a sudden, it would be kind of gentrifying the vendor market. I think you're probably better off in your group with by the nature of being a street vendor, these are autonomous business people. And you can maintain that autonomy with a battery solution or a hybrid solution or some other solution that's not tied to a grid. With the grid comes a rigidity.
Completely different structure here.
Completely legal.
I appreciate the difficulties with the batteries. I happen to have an off-grid cabin out in the woods and I rely on a generator sometimes and I'm contemplating getting batteries. But the amount of battery power you need to do even the simplest tasks is huge. And I rely on propane to cook because otherwise generator wouldn't power my stove, that's for sure.
Did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I totally hear you, and I'm with you 100%. There is so much research that needs to happen, so much investment that needs to take place before we move forward. The one thing I want to share is that if something will happen 10 years from now, the conversations, the investment, the research needs to start today. Otherwise, it's going to happen in 50 years from now, right? Because the situation is very complex. When you look at street vending as an industry, when you look at our streets and our grids, even with the short-term solutions like the battery packs, we are moving forward very, very slowly because we know that the city is not ready for 100 vendors in a given area to go electric. We know that those commissary grids will fire up if 50 vendors, 50 trucks or 50 cars are charging all at once. The city is not ready for that. And
The
think
city
that-
needs to get ready for the electric cars.
True, and they are little by little. And the charging stations is one great example that we are looking at and how we can mirror this, even to prove the concept that this idea is possible. Maybe we can understand how much it costs. Maybe we can understand who's gonna pay for it. And that's why what we're trying to do in Jackson Heights and Jules' idea was, let's start with a pilot. Let's not look at the macro and 20,000 vendors across the city. That might be really tricky. If we start with a pilot to prove a concept that we can do it, and then look at the data, look at the research, look at the outcome of this pilot, and look at the feasibility of how this will be scaled up. If it's gonna happen in 5 years, 10 years, 100 years, at least we have something to work with. And instead of the vendors are just being out in the dark and they are facing threats and complaints about their practices, but no one is offering them a helping hand.
I would just, last comment, with limited resources, I would focus the effort and the resources on your short-term solutions and not just a suggestion.
Yeah, so I think actually connecting to the grid would be cheaper than something like a battery solution. You know, with a pilot, it would be rather cheap if it's $5,000 to install an outlet. And so I think, yes, we should look at a small pilot to see how this plays out for just a few vendors. And I really don't see why this technology can't be done today. I mean, if we have a meter for each of these outlets and the vendors are paying through an app, just like EV infrastructure works. I mean, we've shown that we could do things like that with EVs. So it just doesn't seem that far away from me. And I think we should try a pilot and see how it goes. And it doesn't seem like it would be that much of an upfront cost. If you just test a few vendors, $5,000 for each, it would be $15,000, a one-time cost.
We don't
I
actually.
just don't think it's very expensive.
And it's not a community board thing, right? I mean, I think this is something you have to go and test. You don't know if it's 5,000, you have to get their approval.
Yeah, well,
I think
I
bringing
talked
it
with
back
someone
here
like
for a
Chris.
resolution requires more work. I think we're just trying to.
I'm hearing from the
End the
committee
conversation.
that there's not yet a resolution to be resolved. I think what I do think though is you're getting close. That the idea of this pilot, you know, that it has a real proposal with all of the points that have been identified, including a location, a sense of cost, the different departments and agencies that you'll need for regulatory approvals, to kind of just trace it out. And I know that's work. I hope there's someone besides you who would formulate this along with Joel, but I don't think that's that difficult. And I do think, and I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I do think this committee, I imagine, would support the, you know, the support of a pilot like this. I can't say for sure, but I'm thinking of fleshed out as a proposal that we could evaluate.
Get rid of the generators is a positive.
Yeah, I think maybe some, but you know, it like, you know.
Well, would it be something like Governor's Island would be interested since they have the new center coming and things like that, and they have vendors out there and they
Nice
have,
idea there, Wendy.
you
That's
know, they
great.
have the fancy everything coming, they have money.
I think
Yeah,
that's a very good
They're
idea.
not even building their own electric infrastructure for their ferry for more.
I just think it's not that we need a resolution yet, but maybe we could put people in touch with each other to say, you know, we as a community board are interested in this to get generators off our streets in Lower Manhattan. Could one of your first projects, new climate center that's not built yet, which we understand, but they are an academic think tank. Could we put this on their radar as one of their things that we as a community board are very interested in cleaning up our air?
I don't know if we're making something, that's interesting. Do we do a resolution that says that we're looking at cleaning up our air, or do we wait for them to have a proposal that we?
Well, I was gonna say, I don't think we're there yet to what the community, but it's one of many ideas out there. But I think what we could do is introduce you to the climate center or just Governor's Island in general, because I think they have much more ambitious goals than the city is.
I think it's a great idea, because they're very interested in small, you know, independent groups that are working in climate forward thinking.
Right.
And to have their trucks out there, I don't know if they are, some of them, maybe they are owned by that company, whether Rev or Bev or whatever it is, you know, but that seems like an extraordinarily good
We
idea.
could make introductions,
And
and then if
something-
anything happens, then you could come back and we could write the resolution.
Yeah,
Something like that.
that's, I'm happy, no, of course, it's this what you want, but it's a thought.
It's a thought. You have a lot of things on your plate, but I think that Governor's Island would, you know, that's what we keep saying, composting, everything, like, this is how we as a city should be moving in this direction on a human scale. It would be nice. And there are 1 million visitors out there, so maybe
That's right.
that's a teaching opportunity.
So we will make that introduction.
And
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's what made me
Exactly.
think of it. I like their food.
Have you been out there? Do you know anything about the program out there or anything that they're
Not
doing
the
out there?
program, but we know Governor's Island very well. We had our Wendy's there for many years, so yeah.
Oh, so you have a relationship.
We have stopped the Wendy's for the last 4 years. So I don't know how the leadership and the connection there, but if you know someone who runs the program in particular, you can put us in touch with them, that would be great.
Of course, yeah.
Maybe that would be an ideal approach.
Well, I don't know if we all do. But, well, wow. So, anybody else with questions or comments? It looks like there's no hands up here. Wow, 4:30, this is good news. I wish you all a very happy holiday on the screen. Thank you very much, Kimberly, for coming. It was really generous of you. I know that you had a few other things to do and you turned everything around on a dime. And I also thank you all for doing the same. We have a really interesting project, Joel. And I really want to encourage people like Joel, you know, everybody in the committee to do what you've done here, which is, you know, he comes and he says, what about talking about this at some future meeting? And we did, and it's incredibly worthwhile. And so I really encourage everyone to do that. We have this long list, talking to Wendy about from years ago, that has all these things, and we're slowly checking off things that we've always wanted to talk about, particularly composting. But thank you so much. You had volunteered to do this, I don't know, a year ago, and it's really, really interesting and fascinating.
Thanks for the
So a
opportunity.
big thank you, a big happy holidays. See you all Wednesday. So you don't have to write a resolution, but you.
You were gonna
have-
send me
I'm
a
gonna
draft
send
of
you
one, yeah.
Meeting is adjourned, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.